Hello, everyone. I am Christina Laster with the National Action Network, an organization, a civil rights organization, one of the leading civil rights organizations in the nation, founded by Al Sharpton in 1991. And I serve as one of the education directors covering the Western region of the United States. With me today are some of our youth leaders. We have Anaya Laster and also Candace. Candace is in Tennessee and Anaya is in California, and they will be moderating the chat, answering questions. If you have particular questions for the National Action Network, please privately send them to Anaya Laster or either, let's see, Cheryl Huff. It says Cheryl Huff in black. And so that's Candace. Candace, can you virtually raise your hand so people will know how to send you a message, or either come on camera so that we can see you and people can know to send you or Anaya a message. If you guys have any questions that are organization specific, also send them to Candace or Anaya. Tonight, I want to make sure that we're all safe. So please, I know that sometimes we're having this open community conversation and people get a thought about something that might have happened in their community or something that happened to their child. And we're definitely here to address those issues. We are a civil rights organization, but I want to protect the integrity of your information. So be cautious about what you put in the chat, because this is a public community meeting. And I don't want you to put private information like, I live at XYZ location, here's my address. Can someone come to my house in the morning and take a complaint, right? We have a portal for complaints and a crisis hotline that you can dial in and get those things heard and dealt with. So we'll be more than glad to meet your need. With me are the U.S. Department of Education and also the Executive Order on Advancing Opportunities for Black Americans director is here. Again, I introduced my youth leaders, and we have the Journey for Justice organization with us, and we're really excited about this coalition of bringing information, much needed information, to the community. So I want to introduce Alexis Holmes, who is the director order, and allow her space to talk about what it is, just in case there's someone that doesn't know about the order, which I hope there's not, because we've been doing quite a few of these and we've been talking about it. If you don't know, please reach out to me and I'll get you straight. But yes, I have Alexis Holmes right here, and I would definitely want her to introduce herself. Alexis, welcome.
Thank you so much, Christina, and good evening, everyone. It's so good to see you all. And as I talk, I'm going to keep looking and know that we're going to have some more folks to join us, for tonight's very important discussion, but also the first of many, we'll say. We will continue to have these. We will certainly continue to grow our audience to make sure that our communities are fully engaged and informed about the resources and opportunities that are available to create community schools. And so with that, again, my name is Alexis Holmes, and I'm Executive Director for the White House Initiative on Black Americans. And we are governed under three very key areas, policy areas, those be it around educational excellence, equity, and economic opportunities, of which community schools addresses all of that. And so I think as we continue to have and learn this evening, I will just say that creating and building, I think more and engagement and interest around community schools is a priority of this administration, so much so that funding has actually doubled. We certainly, hope, everything crossed, that we continue to move in that direction. But resources have been and are available to support community schools. And so we are all in for a treat this evening, because we have experts from the Department of Education to talk about some of the nuts and bolts of our community schools, as well as our colleagues here who can talk about how community schools were created and how they have been able to impact our communities. So with that, I would welcome everyone here this evening and say, as I always like to say, please, please, please reach out to us. We are happy to have more of these conversations. This is the work. This is the most important work that we do. So this is not one conversation and then you don't see us until next year. We are happy to hold more of these. If there are other areas, additional folks that we need to include, happy to do that. But with that, again, thank you so much for your attention. And we're in for a treat this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us too and sharing that information. And, we have conducted 3 of these over time, and we're willing to do it again, right? We had 3 town halls with the Office for Civil Rights where they shared information that you needed to know about how to file a complaint. What are things that I can complain about, right? And so all of that stuff matters. It matters so that you have the information and the knowledge that you need and know who to contact, right? If there's something that you're thinking about as a need, put it in the chat so we can make sure that we provide you with that type of session, right? If we need to do the civil rights again, we can do that, right? We did special education, we did school to prison pipeline, and we invited the Office for Civil Rights in. So with that being said, I have the U.S. Department of Education here, and I will allow Jane and Elson to introduce themselves so that I won't mess it up, right? And so we'll go ahead and do that. If you're just joining, please put where you're viewing from. And if you represent an organization, definitely want to hear about that. So put that in the chat. Thank you. Jane and Elson.
All right. Well, good evening. My name is Elson Nash, Director of the School Choice and Improvement Programs Division at the U.S. Department of Education. I am joined with my partner in education, Jane Hodgden, who is the group leader for full service community schools. The division that I direct includes the Promise Neighborhoods program, statewide family engagement centers, the Fostering Diverse Schools Initiative, which is a new initiative that we are working on, magnet schools, the Opportunity Scholarship Program, and the SOAR Act program. These are specific programs for the District of Columbia. We are really excited about this historic investment in the community schools program. This program initiated in 2008 as a $5 million demonstration program. It has grown over the years to about $150 million program. And we hope with the administration support and Congress that it will grow to $368 million in FY24. This program, for those of you on the West Coast, Dee Bailey in the house, you all might be familiar. Christina's probably familiar with it, with the programs down in LA and also San Diego. The historic Jitu Brown is probably familiar with it because of Oakland and also Chicago. Yes, Chicago. Those of you in the Midwest may be familiar with it because of Indianapolis or Fort Wayne or Evansville. We've got community schools in many of the major metropolitan areas, including those of you who are in New York City at Zone 126. We've got them in Florida. We've got them in rural areas where it is expanding rapidly in the state of Kentucky. What are community schools? Community schools are those schools that provide the planning and support for wraparound services for children and families. They can only do this through the power of nonprofit organizations like many of yours. We provide the access for many of the mental health services, after school programs, health services as well, like those in Hayward, California. We also provide before school and after school programs. And during the pandemic, many of our community schools provided that necessary support for families. I'm talking about food. I'm talking about the vaccines. Many of our community schools that were founded in, I would say, the theory of action and theory of change, dating all the way back to Beacon Schools or John Dewey's work in Chicago back in 1908. Those ideas around connecting community to schools, making the community a hub around the schools is what our community schools do. We can't do that without engaging the community. And so one of the fundamental parts of community schools is what's called a needs assessment. So clearly understanding the needs of communities, of which many of you do understand, and building out plans for community schools based on those needs assessments. And so what have we learned over these years? We've learned that community schools help to address issues related to graduation. Graduation rates have increased. Engagement by, of course, students and their families, absenteeism, getting folks back into the schools post-COVID, or even during COVID. We had many of the social workers and mental health advocates connected with community schools, actually going to homes and doing home visits. What we have found is that community schools, through our legislation, there are actually 8 different services that they're targeted. Through the program, they should come in with 3 services, once again, based on those community needs. So imagine if a community needs, of which many of our urban community needs have, is restorative justice. A community school can address that, or at the same time address the mental health needs of children and their families. And finally, looking at things like health services. Those community schools have the ability to do that. Some of these services, once again, are provided by the nonprofit partners. We know that schools can't provide all of these services themselves. So those community partners are critical to the success of community schools. And then I think the beautiful thing that's happened over these last couple of years, we've gone from a program that really supports only at the local, I'm talking 2 or more schools, to actually building out at state levels. So we have essentially 3 different programs, actually 4. We have the absolute, and Jane will cover this. So we have programs that focus, think of it as capacity building and development. We have multi-district programs, and then we have statewide programs. In addition, we cover both rural and urban. And so we try to address the needs of many different districts from across the country. But we do this, and Jane will cover it, through what's called absolute priorities. And I think lastly, the last thing that I would cover is that we also try to address system change. And so we try to encourage our grantees with their partners to break down the barriers between those organizations, perhaps governmental organizations, that are involved in this work. And so we strongly encourage, and actually in many ways try to incentivize breaking down those barriers or silos between the organizations so that they are addressing the needs of children and families. I think we are in a unique position, particularly as a federal agency, to encourage states to do similar work. And as a result of our work, we have a number of states or local districts that are also taking on state funding, i.e. the $4.1 billion that are going to community schools through the state of California. Similar efforts are going on in New Mexico, Vermont. If you also look at the work that is emerging in Minnesota, and also, of course, the state of New York. So with that, I'm going to pause for a minute. Want to make sure that if you have any questions, you put them in the chat. And then I'm going to pass it on to Jane to tell you a little bit more about the opportunities that we have. Before Jane starts, I know many of you may be wondering, well, do I have any community schools in my area? We actually have a list of our grantees on our website. We're rolling out with a map as well. And the cool thing about the grantees that are listed on our site, we have a description about what they do, an abstract. But I think what's even better is that we provide the winning narrative. We have the actual grant narrative for you to check out. And I think that provides you with an opportunity to not only know what's going on, but if you decide to apply for a grant in coordination with your district, that gives you an idea of winning applications. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Jane, and I will stay on, but I'm going to mute myself.
I want to say something before Jane starts. If this is your first time, and it's not a embarrassing thing or anything like that, if this is your first time hearing about community schools, I want you to put a 1 in the chat. And then having this understanding about what a community school is, please put that 1 in the chat. You can privately put 1 to me if that's what you want to do, right? But I'm just trying to gauge where your understanding is and how we can best support you. Thank you, Jane. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much for having us this evening, Christina. It's a real pleasure to be with everybody. And thank you, Elson, for, you really set up the runway on this. So Elson is our director for school choice and improvement programs. And, he's a phenomenal leader who really inspires us and is, he's always thinking about different ways for us to do our work, ways that we can, broaden our outreach. We work closely with Alexis and her team. And, thank you, Alexis and your team for, helping us connect with the network here. And we're really excited about where community schools are right now. As Elson said, it's growing in, more people are becoming familiar with what community schools are. More schools and teachers are really interested in becoming or working in community schools. And that is because community schools can really remove barriers that students and families face. Elson shared some ways and some examples around, whether it's physical health services, mental health services, a big one that we hear about quite a bit is housing insecurity. And, I mean, how difficult is it for a student to be able to pay attention in class when they don't know where they're going to be sleeping that night? Well, a lot of community schools have coordinators who are working to address some of these housing issues and to make sure that not just the student, but that student's whole family has a safe place to be, and working to make sure that there is stable housing, that the types of services that students need in a short term and then also a long term are being addressed. And then in that way, that student's going to be better able to show up in the classroom, to be prepared for whatever the lessons are and the learnings are. So this is an approach that is really near and dear to our hearts, but also to the administration's hearts. I mean, it was an enormous priority of President Biden and Vice President Harris, and we feel really privileged to be able to kind of carry the flag for this. So, that's to talk a little bit about what a community school might be. I think, am I right that Ronsha, Dickerson, you're also going to be able to provide some additional information about what your experience in community schools is too? All right, great. Then I will, I'll turn to tell you a little bit about an opportunity for schools and community partners to receive grant funds to begin or expand a community school in their neighborhood. I do have a slide here. Let me just pull it up. And let's see. There we go. All right. Okay, so as Elson said, the program has been around since 2008. It was put into legislation. It was authorized in 2015, and it has really been growing this entire time, but never as dramatically as it is right now. This year, the Full Service Community Schools program has almost $74 million. And we expect that we'll probably receive around 300 applications and make about 45 different awards. So I know this is kind of a small slide. My apologies to anybody who is joining by phone. I will walk through these, and I'll also let you know where they are on our website so that you can, open them up and see them more closely at any time that you would like. So our applicants, that they either need to apply under what we call absolute priority 1 or absolute priority 2. Generally speaking, absolute priority 1 means that it will be working, the grant would be working with 2 or more schools that are eligible for a school-wide program under Title I. That usually means that 40% or more of the students in the school are at or below poverty level income. It can also mean, because schools look differently in different places, so it can also mean that the attendance area of the school has families and households at where 40% or more of the families and the households are at or below federal poverty levels. The second absolute priority is focused on rural as well. And there's a couple of programs at the Department of Education that we use to help determine. So if a school district is eligible for one of these 2 programs, it's small rural school achievement or rural and low income schools, then they can apply under absolute priority 2. Sometimes it can make a difference because we recognize that the resources are very different in rural and urban settings. So after an applicant and their partners decides if they're going to be urban or rural, then they can choose what type of grant they want. So I'm first going to start with absolute priority 3. It's called Capacity Building and Development Grants. And this is really your starting place. This is where you are beginning to work on a community school. This is the place that really allows you to work on your needs assessment during the grant and not already know what your needs and your assets are. So in this one, you can receive $2.5 million over 5 years. And for all of these, the eligibility is going to be the same with one addition. But for this capacity building and development, it needs to be a local education agency, which is really just a different term for school district, and a community-based organization or nonprofit. So they're partnering together. And then the grant runs for 5 years. A grantee can use up to 10% of their money to do planning work in year 1. So that might include doing the needs assessment. It might include more community engagement or, working to identify more of the resources that are already in the schools so that there can be a more thoughtful approach to what are the additional services that we might need with the grant funds. The minimum number of schools is 2. So you have to have at least 2 schools, no matter what type of grant you're going to apply for. Every type of grant needs to have a preliminary memorandum of understanding, which is, an agreement between the partner organizations. And we called it preliminary because we've gotten feedback across many of our programs that sometimes folks are a little bit concerned about agreeing to something when they don't know whether or not they're going to get the money. So we call it a preliminary MOU. And then each of these these types of programs, they're all looking at selection criteria. So they're these things that you need to do in order to develop your application. And then the selection criteria, this is how our peer reviewers will rate your application. And so they'll be looking at need, at the way that you designed the project, the type of project services that are going to be in there, the adequacy of resources, like are you bringing in, your own resources to this as well? Are you going to have it staffed with the right folks? A management plan for making sure that everything is kind of done on time and in the right way. And then also evaluation. So, taking another look at the work that's happening to ensure that there's progress being made or that we're learning from the challenges that we're having and building those in so that we improve the work that we're doing. So that's the planning and development. I'll be able to move a little bit more quickly through the other types of grants, but this second one is for applicants that have more than one school district. And the idea is you're working at a slightly higher scale, right? So not just one school district, but working in multiple school districts, which can be really important. And in many communities, we know that students and families move back and forth between different school districts. And so when you have more school districts that are resourcing and supporting students and their families through any transitions, it becomes really helpful to see more scaling like this happen. So the maximum award under this multi-LEA grant or multi-district grant.
Hi, Jane. I'm sorry. Are the slides supposed to be advancing because we're still on slide 1?
They are? Oh, I've been advancing.
Oh, okay. I felt that we weren't seeing the other slides, so I'm sorry to interrupt you. But you
Oh, no, I'm so glad that you did. Let's see here.
Thank you for your patience, everyone. And I see your request for information in the chat. And so we'll make sure that those links are available before the end of the meeting.
Okay. All right. So are you seeing one that has a red box?
We see one that has a red box now. Yes.
Okay. All right. thank you so much for letting me know. And please, please do, if for some reason it doesn't advance again. I was just going on and thinking everybody was following along with what I was seeing.
That's right.
All right. So the maximum award for these multi-school district grants is $15 million over 5 years. Same applicant, but there need to be the 2 districts or 2 LEAs, as I mentioned, up to 5 years. They can also use up to 10% for planning in year 1. And then the minimum number of schools is 2 schools per district or per LEA. But we do have an exception in case there's a school district that only has a single school. Sometimes charter schools are their own district. Sometimes there are rural or remote schools that may only have a single school in their whole district. They too need to have a preliminary memorandum of understanding. The selection criteria include those same that I mentioned with need and project design, project services, adequacy of resources, management plan, and evaluation. And then we're going to move on. So I'm on slide 6 now. Great. Elson, give me the nod. Good. Thank you. And when Elson said that we're really scaling up to the state level, this is what he was talking about, that we have this absolute priority 5 full service community schools state scaling grant. And so this is up to $50 million over the 5 years. Same applicants, so needs to be at least 1 LEA and 1 nonprofit or community-based organization. And the difference is that there also needs to be a partnership with the state education agency. So, the California Department of Education or the Maryland Department of Education. And then in partnership with that state, that's where the applicant determines the number and the percentage of school districts that it's going to serve across the state. And it varies a lot because there are some states that have a small number of school districts. I live in Maryland and we're a county-wide district state. So, I don't know, I'm embarrassed to say, I don't know how many counties we have in Maryland, but it's not that many, like let's say maybe it's, 15, 20 or something. But then if you go into some other states, they have hundreds of school districts. So we really needed to make this in a way that states and their partners could really determine what was the best fit for them. Project period is still the 5 years, but in this case, the state education department needs to commit to sustain it beyond 2 years after the term of the grant. Still have that planning period of up to 10% of the award in year 1. And then the minimum number of schools really depends on how many school districts are going to be served. They also have the preliminary memorandum of understanding, and they also need to develop a state steering committee that has really interesting participation in it. People that have worked in community schools need to be on that. Families need to be on that. Organizations that represent schools and families need to be on that. It has those same selection criteria with one addition, which is about the strategy to scale. All right, so I should be on slide 7 now, and there should be a red box at the bottom because we wanted to share a little bit about something called competitive preference priorities. And so a competitive preference priority is kind of our way of signaling additional things that the secretary and the administration are really interested in. So this first one is competitive preference priority 1, and it's about meeting students' social, emotional, and academic needs. And so this is really getting into, how is this fitting in the actual classroom? How is this work of, providing supports, how is that really like meeting in with what's happening in a classroom? And an applicant can receive up to 5 points for responding to that. The second one is, as Elson mentioned, this strengthening cross-agency coordination and community engagement to advance systemic change. This one's up to 5 points as well. And if you take a look at the actual notice inviting applications, you can read through it and you can see that it also has this emphasis on research-based or evidence and community violence prevention and intervention. So it's really about how are we working across different types of partners in our community to use evidence-based approaches that can prevent and intervene early in community violence. We all know how much that impacts not just our communities, but everything that's happening in our family systems and in our schools as well. This year, this is a new one. We have an invitational priority. So there aren't any additional points that are assigned for this, but it is about supporting the transition of students from early learning settings. It could be, early Head Start. It could be any kind of early learning setting into kindergarten, and then from kindergarten into those early grades. And, some of it is really thinking about like, how do we make sure that those supports for families and how they're engaged, how do we make sure that we continue that? How do we try to align the pieces of what has worked well in early learning and make sure that that is followed through into the early grades? Okay, Elson mentioned the pipeline services, and this has a list of those types of pipeline services. As he mentioned, the expectation is that a grantee will have at least 3 services that they're coordinating, 3 pre-existing services that they're coordinating. It might be after school programming. It could be pre-K classes in the school. And, he also mentioned restorative justice practices. Maybe those are the 3 that are already there. And you have a coordinator who's helping to make sure that they're really well aligned, and then adding 2 more. So 2 more might be, we're going to be bringing in dental care. We're going to be doing a lot more around project-based learning so that kids are learning out in the community. So that would be an example of the 3 existing that are really well coordinated with 2 more. Elson, Elson and I have been on a few meetings today, so I can't remember if you said in this one anything about the pillars of community schools, but we have learned, we the field have learned over the last decade or so a lot more about when community schools are working really well. And one of the things that was learned is that a school that has these 4 pillars is having better results. So those include integrated student supports, and that's like your in-school and your out of school supports for students. And this might be where you see medical care or assistance with housing or transportation. The second is around expanded and enriched learning time and opportunities. And so this could be your project-based learning. This could be, where you're making sure that there are things like drama and music and arts and sports involved in your school. And then really pivotal is active family and community engagement. And this is really about making sure that community members and family members have an important role in the school, that they're involved in the decision-making and the leadership of the school. And then finally, these collaborative leadership and practices that really support high quality teaching. So here too, you could very well see family and community organizations really sitting at the table with any of the school leadership, making sure that teachers have a real role in leadership as well. And if you have all 4 of these pieces being addressed in your school, you're more likely to have really good outcomes. And we want to measure those outcomes for our grant program. So this has a list of the types of evaluation activities that a grantee needs to engage in. So they would work with an evaluator and they would be doing regular evaluations. They're using them to improve what they're doing. They're collecting a decent amount of data, and then they're making that information publicly available so that the whole community can see that. And then new to this year is participating in a national evaluation. So you can see these required indicators. They include things around absenteeism, around school climate, around changes in school spending, in graduation. And we know that some of these are going to take a little longer than others, but it's important that we start taking a look at that data as soon as possible. All right. One other thing that is new this year is the need to develop a logic model that shows, it's kind of a graphic representation that shows, here's what we're planning to do, here's what the resources are that we're going to use to do that, here's what we think that is going to result in early, and then here are the long-term impacts that we expect that this work will have. So on our webpage that I'm going to, give you a quick highlight of, you'll see that we have some recordings and some other resources that can be helpful around what is a logic model, how do I develop one, kind of for some of us making it a little less scary. Okay, and so then, just a couple of highlights here. We've got a number of resources on this page, and then some of the ones that I really wanted to highlight are, we have a whole, on the top left, we have a circle around, that's our competition webpage. And so that's where we're putting all the information that's really about the competition, like, our frequently asked questions or recordings of webinars, things like that. On the right-hand side there, you can see the timeline. So the application became available earlier this month on June 7th. We're asking folks to let us know if they plan to apply, and that would be due July 7th. You do not have to submit your intent to apply in order to submit an application. And if you submit an intent to apply, it does not obligate you to submit an application later. It just helps us try to get our arms around how many applications we think we're going to receive. And then the applications are actually due on August 8th. That is a very hard deadline. If any of you have been involved with the Department of Education and grants, you know that there's just no wiggle room on those. So August 8th is the day. We mentioned who's eligible to apply, but again, it's one or more school districts / LEAs. The Bureau of Indian Education could also apply in place of a school district. But there needs to be a partnership with one or more community-based organizations or a nonprofit organization. The nonprofit can be the lead or the school district can be the lead. All right, and then the last thing that I wanted to highlight is, you can see I've got a circle here around our program website. And Elson mentioned some of the resources that we have on there. So one of the great resources is all of the funded applications. All 42 applications from last year are on there, so you could see how people put these together. You can also see previous applications from, years past, back to 2018. And then there are some more resources around just general things like what is a community school, or, like small videos around what about the pillars of community schools, things like that. All right, so now I'm going to see if I can figure out how to stop sharing my screen. There we go. Oh, wow, that worked out well. And so, that's kind of the nickel tour of what our competition looks like, and would love to address any questions that have come in. I have not been able to check the chat. I can talk or I can chew gum, but not both.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Does anyone have any questions about that segment? Cheryl.
Hi, thank you so much for this information. I really enjoy this. My question is, do you have to be a organization that has already been existed for a certain amount of time, or if you are within almost 2 years in? Can you answer that for me?
Sure, Cheryl. So I think you're asking if you're currently a 501c3, and if you've had a 501c3 for the last couple of years, can you apply? The answer is yes. However, so here's the however, as a nonprofit, you need to partner with your school district. And so, making sure that you are a part of a collaborative is an important point with this grant. It was one of the things that Jane talked about in the beginning when she said to have a preliminary memorandum of understanding among partners. So if you are thinking about applying, make sure that you're doing it in collaboration with your local school district.
So we are already in existence since 91, but we're just a umbrella of our national. So does that count, or do we still have to partner with the school because we've been in existence more than 2 years?
So you definitely have to partner with the school district. That is one of the fundamental what do you call it? Missions of requirement and missions of this grant opportunity.
Okay. Thank you.
And I just want to give a disclaimer for those who need to leave on the dot the time. We're probably going to go a little bit over. I do want to take the time to answer your questions, though, and so I'm patient and flexible. I appreciate that. Sheila, we're going to go to you, and then we're going to have Journey for Justice speak about their experiences with community schools.
Thank you very much. We do have community schools here. All the services you spoke of, they do offer. My question was, you spoke about the violence component. And so we have a program that we ran in the school maybe 5 or 6 years ago, pre-COVID, the Safe Promise Clubs. So I guess my question is, would that be something that you guys would consider? If that would be the objective, is to have the Safe Promise Clubs within the school system. Thank you.
So Sheila, once again, one of the things that Jane talked about were 3 existing services, and then the idea of scaling up and adding additional services. So let's say if within your district, you already have 3 services occurring, and you would like to add into the violence prevention or intervention program. That could be the additional services that you would be scaling up and including in the initiative. So once again, it depends on your coalition of folks and how you are planned to run the program. But that is not impossible. That's something that you can do as long as you all include it and your coalition is involved in it.
Yes, this program has been approved by Fort Wayne Community Schools. It was in the system before. So I
Okay.
guess we're a priority one. She stated the different categories, so we would be considered a number one.
Yes.
And so I guess I'm looking at this as bringing this back into the school system, and using the funding to do that. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, and then there was a question, and you can answer this in the chat, Elson. Is there technical support that can help maybe with some of these other questions, like do you need a UIE number to apply, or maybe walk people through the process? I'm glad those prior applications are there, so as an example, people can look at those. But yeah, if there is some technical support available, that would be.
Absolutely. So that is something that our team is doing ongoing. We definitely provide these types of webinars that are recorded. In addition, we have a frequently asked questions that also goes through a lot of the questions. You'll see things that maybe you didn't even think about in the frequently asked questions that will assist you. Lastly, there are actually national organizations, and it's kind of a good thing because we can't get involved in the nitty-gritty of your application, but these national organizations like the Coalition for Community Schools, like Partners for Rural Impact, like the National Center based out of New York City, they actually are providing, I'll call them application roundtables, from a regional standpoint, where they actually dig into specifics related to the applications. Those are things that we can't do. We can't give you insights on how to write your application. We can only provide clarity around what our notice means. But those organizations can provide you with greater insight. We don't sanction them, but we say, hey, these are our partners that are out there assisting prospective applicants in developing their applications. And they're ongoing. If you go to the Coalition for Community Schools website, you can see where they post some of the times in which they have these roundtables. Partners for Rural Impact does the same thing for rural communities. And so I would encourage you all to obviously attend those things that we do, that we will provide clarity around the application process and the application itself. And then those national organizations can provide more in-depth insight on what you are doing. And these are folks who won. And so those folks can tell you, hey, look, this is what we did and how we did it. And you match that with the narratives that we post on our website, you get a keen idea on what those peer reviewers are looking for.
Thank you so much for that. I'd like to now introduce Journey for Justice. Ronsha and Brother Brown will be speaking to you all about their experiences. And so welcome and thank you so much for your patience. And I'll turn it over to you guys.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you, everybody. We're so honored to be here. Just excited about this partnership and opportunity to learn more about community schools. And shout out to the USDOE and NAN for giving time to show this connection across the country. I'm sure that a lot of folks are just like sucking up this information because it's just so much good information. So we came on board to talk about our grassroots experience of doing sustainable community school study tours. We have a small presentation we wanted to show. We wanted to actually go into the heart of what building a community school, building community schools and our Journey for Justice Alliance looks like and how it is working to kind of build community, create sustainability and many other things. I look on a call right now and I see so many people from J4J and our Equity Else campaign. So a lot of our members are on it. They thank y'all for being on. We have folks from all over. If you're from J4J, put a heart or some kind of reaction on the screen so folks can see all the love, the sea of love that's out there for us. And just excited to like see this partnership really go on. I just got to give some love to Director Holmes. She's such a creator of like creating these spaces for us to connect. And it's been amazing, like the work that she's doing in that office to make sure that grassroots organizations, national groups like us are getting a chance to meet some other folks who are doing just as good work. So I want to toss the mic over to our National Director, Jitu Brown, as we get into a bigger conversation about what the study tour look like for us as we build community schools across the country.
Thank you, Ronsha. I appreciate you, sister, and Miss Alexis and Sister Lasta. Thank you all so much for welcoming us into the space. I had to put on my glasses because I'm like, you know, you're getting old when you wear contact lenses and you need reading glasses. So I'm gonna help it do the best I can with this. So my understanding is my assignment is to explain our vision of sustainable community schools, and one of the instruments that we've used to help expand sustainable community schools is what we call the Sustainable Community School Study Tour. So maybe I can ground this presentation with a few quotes that are kind of central to our belief. One is that the foundation of any nation are the institutions that lay the structure for the people's development. So in any civilized society, the way the institutions function reflect how the people are viewed, how the people are valued. And so when we look at Black communities around the country and you know our history, many of us live in communities where most of the institutions are ran by somebody else. And they run those institutions based on their opinions of our communities. And the one thing that we fought so long for, which was self-determination, the right to define, name, and speak for ourselves instead of being defined, named, and spoken for by others is lost. Another thing that we believe is that schools are community institutions. We are not customers in our neighborhoods. The elementary school that I went to also served all three of my younger siblings. Schools are supposed to be part of the fabric of a community expressing itself, the people in the community being able to, generation after generation, create situations where the children can stand on their shoulders. And the last thing is that community wisdom and academic expertise are necessary ingredients for school improvement. Community wisdom and academic expertise are necessary ingredients for school improvement. And that just speaks to the fact that in our neighborhoods, there is knowledge about what children need to learn, about what are the conditions that young people are facing, about brilliant ideas about educational opportunities, resources, safety, community culture, community history. And when institutions are in your neighborhood and that is not respected and protected, then basically what we have is colonialism. When we think of colonialism, we think of Africa in the 20th century. We think of, you know, Belgium and the Congo. We think of France and Senegal. But if you live in a neighborhood and the basic quality of life institutions, food production and delivery systems, education, housing, housing, healthcare, clothing, if they're ran by someone else, you live in a colonial state. And the last sort of principle that's going to shape this thing is that for Black people, everything is political. So I am very, I'm thrilled that we're working with Sister Alexis Holmes and the spirit by which we've engaged each other. What I'm getting ready to say is by no means a dig at what the wonderful work you all are doing now. But we must acknowledge the harm that the last 25 years of school privatization has reaped on Black communities and brown communities, but primarily Black communities across the country. And as the smoke from the rubble sets, we see these cities that 20 years ago, what we called soul cities. Chicago, 20 years ago, 53% of the population, today 29%. Oakland, pretty much the same demographic. Washington, D.C., even worse. Chocolate City might be called Macadamia Nut City now, right? Where these were soul cities. Detroit, these were places where we knew where our folks were, and there was a culture that we had developed. And the last 20 years of ignoring inequity and advancing school privatization, the charter industry, and school, because you cannot separate the charter industry from school closings, has wreaked havoc and done harm in our communities. This movement, or this effort, has purged systems of Black teachers. So much in point, there's a neighborhood school 3 minutes from my house. I'm not going to name it, but it's 3 minutes from my house. And my son should have gone to that school. But when I went there was 600 kids in the school and 3 Black teachers. And so our children are growing up with this image that leadership looks like young white women. And young white women are welcome to be a part of the teaching team to educate our children, but they should not be the soul of it. But across the country, that is the reality. This is the effect of the U.S. Department of Education ignoring inequity and moving the privatization agenda. And so the work we have to do now, we believe is excuse my slang, get right work. Like, there's been harm done, and we need to do some get right, because we need to recover. Like, when you're looking at the violence in Chicago, anybody that thinks that the last 10 years of spiked violence in Chicago is not directly connected to young people being displaced and pushed in other neighborhoods, then they would also believe that I could dunk from the free throw line. It's asinine to look at it any other way. But we are in some exciting moments around the country. In Chicago, we have elected a public school teacher as mayor, and we defeated a notorious privatizer who wreaked serious harm in Chicago. And the plan is for Chicago, stated by the mayor, to become a sustainable community school district. So my charge, after that soapbox moment, my charge is to share with you all our vision of sustainable community schools. So Journey for Justice Alliance is a national community organization. We call ourselves a national organization of organizations. We're not a network. We work much closer than that. We share a belief system. We organize together. We support each other. We help a group of angry parents or frustrated parents in New Orleans build an organization. We're institution builders. And so, and we believe that when we say speaking truth to power, we are not talking about speaking to government. We're about reminding people in our communities that we are lions that have been taught that we're lambs. So what we must do is understand that the power is in our communities. And so this picture right here is of the 12 brave women and men that in 2015 waged a diet hunger strike that lasted for 34 days against the mayor of the city, Rahm Emanuel, and which resulted in the first sustainable community school. Now, what I would like to share is that I'm a full supporter of and we are full supporters of the full service community school model. I was the resource coordinator at South Shore School of Entrepreneurship, which was the first high school in Chicago that was a community school. So I did that from 1998 to 2003. What we recognized, the reason we developed these 6 pillars is because we realized that we didn't just want to get input. We had to create a situation where the entire school community had a voice in shaping the school. And so the 6 pillars that we developed, before I go there, I would just share this point, that when I say the people are the power, we were ridiculed often for standing up and demanding that we saved our last open enrollment high school. Politicians that look like me told us that we couldn't beat Rahm Emanuel. Some politicians that look like me attacked us. But they had to stand behind us at the ribbon cutting when we reopened that school with $16 million in new investments. So I believe that fight was not an anomaly. It was a microcosm of what needs to happen around the country. We did deep, intense, respectful community engagement when we built the vision for Diet as the hub of a sustainable community school village. In other words, connection with all 6 of its feeder schools, vertical curriculum alignment, local school councils training together, et cetera, et cetera. And because we engaged the people respectfully, we used our superpower that nobody talks to Ms. Jones or to Mr. Watkins, who may be low-income residents, but love and care about their children as much as anybody else. Nobody talks to them about their vision of a better world and mean it. We engage people because we want them to put the sprinkles on the cake, but not because we want them to help us bake it, right? And so by doing that work, we amassed a Bronzeville army. And when it was time for us to go to town hall meetings, we were able to go to town hall meetings with hundreds of people because they knew that we valued them. And so that was the formula for what became today Diet as an open enrollment neighborhood school, a high-performing open enrollment neighborhood school that just gave over $60 million in scholarships for its graduating class this year. So we define equity as what's needed to remedy defects in access to justice, resources, and opportunity. We look at sustainable community schools as evidence-based school improvement models that offer whole child education strategies, the same as full-service community schools, but we engage the whole community in the process of designing and implementing the key pillars to school success. We'll get into that in a minute. So just like full-service community schools, each school should have a leadership committee comprised of parents, community members, educators, students. So when I was at South Shore, my leadership committee was the United Block Clubs Association. That was 9 different block clubs in the neighborhood, a local pastor, executive director of a community organization, students, teachers. Janice Jackson, who eventually became the CEO of Chicago Public Schools, was on our leadership committee because she was a teacher at South Shore at the time, and the principal, along with myself. And this body of people ultimately hires the resource coordinator and supports the school community being fully engaged in the sustainable community school. We provide oversight for the sustainable community school and support. And of course, you need a resource coordinator. They manage the day-to-day operations of the sustainable community school. They work in partnership with the principal. So when I was the resource coordinator, Mr. Gernstein, who was the principal of South Shore, called me a co-principal. And, and so we worked together a lot in regards to dealing with student discipline issues, resources that young people needed, field trips, anything that we wanted to do. He would sit down. He was the type of school leader who was collaborative, which is important for a community school. A dictator is ill qualified to lead a community school. And you need, as my brother Elson said, you have to have a lead community partner. And that's a community based. We're encouraging more organizing groups as well as nonprofit agencies to become lead community partners, because we believe that, again, everything is political. And so, there is a time that you may have to hold the district accountable to, because sustainable community schools for us is an instrument for equity in a system that has been inequitable. The fact that we are comfortable using phrases like historically underserved, marginalized, means that this is woven into the fabric of our country. It is culture to underserve our communities. And at some point, we have to de-anesthetize, if that's a word, ourselves to recognize that that's not normal. It's not okay, right? So we believe that that nonprofit organizations and organizing groups should be community partners, because you have to have an organization that has history in the neighborhood, that understands how to pull resources from outside the school into the school, right? So those are some key components for sustainable community school. And then we have 6 pillars. And again, this is what we looked at, Alexis, was just how do we take a deeper dive? How do we build a vision? You know, we don't want, okay, we're the school leaders, but we're going to engage you. You know what I mean? And in the worst case of community schools, that's how it can operate, right? You'll do a survey, right? They may have a town hall meeting, ask you what you wanted, then you'll see a few programs. But we understand that in an American school system that has failed to honor the mandate of Brown versus Brown, there is massive inequity, and that our communities are so used to being ignored that often we don't even trust engaging the institution. So we have to do something differently. And the thing we do differently is say, this school is all of ours. What do you think our children should learn? So if you live in an example in Chicago, the Mexican community in Little Village, where Congressman Chuy Garcia is from, has different issues than the Mexican community that lives on 106th and Avenue O. The organization lives on the far south side, has serious environmental justice issues, right? In Little Village, one of the main issues is overcrowding. So, I mean, you can tailor what a child learns based off what the needs are in the neighborhood, right? If we want our young people not to escape the hood, but transform the hood, they must learn how to become change agents. They must learn how to solve problems. School should be a place where they can actually solve problems, right? Then that's what we mean by relevant. Culturally relevant is not just about learning Black history. It's also Brown history or Indigenous history. It's also about your life and what you experience every day. Young people that have to walk a special route because of gang violence should be able to engage each other around community safety strategies. And if that's not considered in the school, once again, you have colonialism. So these are our 6 pillars: engaging, culturally relevant, and challenging curriculum. I'm gonna move a little faster. High quality teaching, not high stakes testing. Wraparound supports for every child. Now I'll say a little something about this. When we say wraparound supports, yes, we know having counselors, being able to have a school nurse, et cetera, et cetera. At one of our elementary schools, Drake, we have a medical clinic, and it's needed. But we view wraparound, and my experience teaches me that wraparound supports are anything that removes an obstacle to a child learning. So from that standpoint, if you look at schools where half the budget has gone towards test-taking mandates, so even your discretionary money at the local level may have gone towards an additional reading block, an additional math block. So have these young people ever experienced a debate team? Have they ever experienced a Black History Club, a robotics club? Have they ever traveled? Have they ever, you all get my point. These things are also wraparound support. So we should expand out. Do they have a student leadership development, not student council, a student leadership development committee where they can actually solve community problems? We did that with Voices of Youth in Chicago Education. Ronsha and them have done that with Camden Student Union, where young people were actually able to solve the problems that they faced every day and grow as leaders. We say that it's not about them being leaders tomorrow. Their time is now, right? And so when we say wraparound supports, we wanted to expand our view. Also, student-centered school climate, restorative justice initiatives. But again, I don't want to sound redundant, but also student leadership development is also how you can, when young people have voice in their school, they take ownership of their education experience, right? So when we were doing Voices of Youth in Chicago Education, they set up, we had 7 schools. At each school, they set up voice leadership teams. The young people ran the meetings. They designed the program on how to influence freshman students and ended up at Dyett High School back in the day, raising the freshman on track rate And the principal, Mr. McMillan, acknowledged that they were a major contributor to raising the freshman on track rate 23 percentage points. Yeah, I'm in a meeting, I'll like that. All right. I'm sorry, that was my boss, my wife. All right, so authentic parent and community engagement. We know that again, community wisdom and academic expertise are necessary ingredients to school improvement. So what ways can parents and community assist building a strong school culture? Well, I'm honored to have on the call Mother Helen Moore from Detroit, Michigan. Mother Helen Moore is 86 years young and developed a program that had 300 community residents reading to kindergarten through third grade students because the Detroit Public Schools Administration was targeting them for saying that if they didn't have a certain reading score, they were going to fail. So she initiated a program because of her vast network, and because when Mama Moore calls, we come. When she called, the people came. If you don't have people like that, if you are a school administrator and you don't respect and value people like that, then you're not fit to be in front of our children, right? So, but that was authentic parent and community engagement. And finally, inclusive school leadership. We want to make sure that we have a leader who understands how to facilitate the leadership in others, how to recognize and facilitate the leadership in others. This is important because if you are blind to the gifts that other people offer because you're so busy extolling your own gift, if you can't see what other people have to offer, then how can you be a leader? How can you be a leader? So if that parent, if it's the mother of the neighborhood and everybody responds and she's a high school graduate and that's all she had, but if she calls a meeting, she can get more people than you, then you better recognize that that's what she brings to the table, right? And I'm talking from experience. I've had various people. One of the greatest women I ever met was a woman named Linda Brown. Linda Brown was a high school graduate, but she was the mother of the neighborhood at Fuller Elementary School. And I gained a lot from learning and working with Ms. Linda Brown. So now we're gonna move to the tool that we use. It's called the Sustainable Community School Study Tour. And it's really simple. Cities that are interested in establishing campaigns or expanding the model, hold on a minute, the slide, sister. Right, so, all right, so if I understand it correctly, there's two schools that we went to. One was Drake Elementary School and one was Dye. Drake is part of our Sustainable Community School Village. Had an amazing principal who's gone on to be the number 3 at Chicago Public Schools, named Ms. Morris, focused on racial equity, valued what community members could bring. And so, and then you'll see 1 or 2 schools. And we've had 4 Sustainable Community School Study Tours over the last 2 years. We've had folks from Jackson, Mississippi come twice. And we've also had folks from St. Louis come and Communities One Project, and Miss Alexander is on now, and we're strategizing now with Communities One Project and the St. Louis AFT affiliate to strategize on how to expand this model, to establish this model in St. Louis. So you can go ahead with the, and so these were some of our sisters and brothers from St. Louis. And we're at Dyett High School, like I said, at high school, and there's a few Mississippi people in there too. And this is us at Dyett High School, just having a conversation around, and you see this, what I love about the reinvestment in Dyett. Have you ever been in a neighborhood school and the school is dark, right? The windows are dirty, the school is dark. When you walk through Dyett, it's light everywhere, right? It is an environment that tells the young people that they are valued. Right, and imagery is everything. Right, imagery is not irrelevant. How young people feel when they walk in the building, what the school looks like, it does matter. And so they're learning about sustainable community schools, asking questions. We can keep going. But we took them first to the Kenwood Oakland Community Organization. It's the oldest Black-led community group in Chicago, been around since 1965. We have about 1,000 members in the historic Bronzeville community, and we gave them a tour. So we started with the community partner, then we went to the school. And keep going. And everything from them getting a tour and being able to meet the principal, meet the resource coordinator, meet young people, meet teachers, and then, again, be able to go around the school. And this is at another community partner for Drake, the Virginia Burns Hope Center. Believe it or not, this is the community organization that former President Barack Obama started. And it was a dying organization. And our brother, Rod Wilson, who comes from Cocoa, became the executive director, and now it's flourishing. They are actually about to win a huge campaign holding Chicago Housing Authority accountable for not building affordable housing and giving away former housing project land to the Chicago Fire soccer team. And they got Maxine Waters to tap in, and now Congressman Jonathan Jackson. And of course, now that we have our brother on the 5th floor, it's huge. This is the medical clinic at Drake Elementary School. So, these type of experiences we believe are important because it's easy to tell people, but for people to be able to see it, to experience it. We've held this study tour in New York as well. And the one thing you hear that you want to hear as an organizer is, why don't we have that? Now you know you got them. So this was actually they had a mobile zoo at Drake Elementary. I mean, we walked in on the snakes and snapping turtles and all type bunnies and all types of stuff. So, and again, this is just some of the things that they noticed at Drake Elementary School. High expectations. Drake is an excellent neighborhood elementary school, and they treat the young people like this. So when you're at Drake, there's no putting on performances. We walking through the hallway and the young people are running up to the principal, giving them a hug. You know what I mean? It's an environment that is let them know that they matter. That young people matter, because love is the primary ingredient. If we're talking about test scores and everything else, but at the end of the day, love conquers all. This is Jess Johnson. Jess is now she is the deputy mayor for education. She was a former teacher with the Chicago Teachers Union. I've shut down many a meeting with her in the past, so it's kind of crazy that we shutting down school board meetings, and now she's actually over at the mayor's office, facilitating the whole education process. And so we're partnering with her on, again, the goal for Chicago to become a sustainable community school district. This is something called Drake's Closet, and this was a piece that they have at Drake, where Drake is located inside the Dearborn housing projects. So of course, you 99% Black, 90% low income. And so you want to make sure that young people, if they need shoes, if they need clothes, they can go in there and they can shop. And it looks like a little department store. And you go in there, and of course they don't have to pay. This is more of our conversations as they're learning about the history of the neighborhood. This is the Virginia Burns Hope Center. It was a very inspirational experience. I was honored to be a part of it. And so we do these study tours. And part of it, the reason why Jess was there, I said Jess, the reason why Jennifer was there is because one of the things we did in Chicago is we established a task force which deals with the governance, the training of not only your resource coordinators, but your principals, school staff, youth leaders on the model. And we strongly encourage everyone to come to the trainings. And for the most part, that's what happens. We do trainings throughout the year. We have a citywide sustainable community school coordinator because we have 20 of those schools right now. But we also have a summer training institute. So in July, for about 2 weeks, they'll be going through training with us, and it's pretty intense. One of our ideas, because I'm on the transition team, never dreamed I would be on anybody's transition team. They usually lock the door so I can't get in, but we at the transition team, and one of the things that we're doing right now is looking at what does a responsible urgency look like. in expanding sustainable community schools. So we're looking at models of like 20 to 25 schools per year, but a school has to go through 6 months to a year of training because it's not a program. It's not a program. And what many people will do, they'll just look at it as a grant because that's how we program to look at things. But we're saying, no, it's a culture. It's a different way of looking at schooling. It's understanding that even if you are a classroom teacher, you don't know everything that these young people need to learn. Even if you are a barbershop philosopher, there are things that you don't know about education. And so we all have something to offer, right? And it's really important that we stop the practice of voluntary colonialism in Black communities. If you ask yourself a common denominator across the country, no matter where you go, and this was not our reality. I'm 57 years old. This was not my reality growing up. My reality is I saw people that look like me who own the maiden businesses in my community. But that is not the reality of our young people today. And so ownership is something that is almost foreign to us in regards to just not individual businesses, but all the activities of our community. And I'll close with this. Kwame Nkrumah, first president of modern day Ghana, said that it is better to govern or misgovern yourself than to be governed by anybody else. And so I think it's really important that we understand that this community schools piece, we cannot avoid the politics of it. Community schools and school privatization cannot coexist. It's oil and water. It's two different belief systems. One belief system says the parents are customers. The other belief system says the schools are community institutions. That does not mean that there aren't good charter schools. It does not mean that. But it does mean that the charter industry has a political purpose, and it is very clear what that industry has done in Black communities. And I'm really going to close with this. The reason I'm talking like this, because Alice Walker taught us that no one is your friend who demands your silence or denies your right to grow. So if people are not prepared to hear the pain, like we're the ones that have to dry those tears when people's schools close. We're the ones when a kid gets kicked out of a charter school, they come to our offices. The district don't serve them. They come to our offices. And we have, just yesterday, I had a little brother kicked out of Perspectives High School that now we're getting into Kenwood Academy High School, a public school, right? Every day we have to deal with that stuff. So no, we're done being ignored. We're done with people who don't have to live with the consequences, making decisions about our young people. And we're done acting like politicians out of power. We're very clear that we are the power, right? We are lions that have been taught that we lambs. We ready to roar. So that's all I got.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. If I could give applause out loud, I would, but you see in the chat, people clapping. You know, I want to just say in this space is a valuable amount of resources right here, right? A lot of times we're looking way over there and way over there. Right here, there is a valuable amount of resources. Share it with your neighbor, okay? A lot of the things that we do in community is out of word of mouth, right? Getting on the phone saying, hey, Christina, did you know? Oh, I didn't, but now I do. Let me find out if I can share that information with someone else. Because we're not always captivated by, seeing stuff online. Sometimes we glaze over that. And so also I want you to take the links out of the chat and utilize those and that information right away. Because I know how it is, I'm grandma. So I can go and make a grilled cheese sandwich right after this, because I got my little granddaughter upstairs waiting for probably 1 or 2. And I will say, oh man, what was that Brother Brown said again? And so that being said, it's good to put into practice utilizing the resources, connecting with people, and we sharing our social media handles. Do it right away, right? You see this information, and I wouldn't be myself, my normal policy and legislation self, if I didn't end with the fact that, again, if you have not seen the executive order and haven't taken the time to read through it, because look, right here, It is the policy, okay, of my administration to advance educational equity, excellence, and economic opportunity for Black Americans and communities from early childhood into chosen career. Don't say, Christina, they didn't tell me. Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. I'm gonna get on the phone and call you. You say you didn't, I didn't tell you. Okay, and this was from 2021. So this is how long this has been there. And with that being said, I'm gonna close. If anybody has any questions, I did let you know that I will be sharing this recording with everyone who's registered. If not, I'm gonna put my email in the chat. I wanna hear from you all. If you guys have other subjects that you want us to cover, and we will provide that for you. Okay, that's what we're here for our community. And I appreciate you, Brother Brown, with the lions. Got my lion earrings on today. So I am happy that I'm in the right place with the right people. Does anyone have any questions before we end?
I just have a quick comment, Christina. I just want to thank you for being such a visionary to bring this together. I think that it really matters. I don't think we get a chance to really love on each other when we're all in like crisis in our own spaces. I'm being honest. Like it's a crisis, but we're all trying to survive through what this new process is of us, gaining an opportunity to like be a better human, I guess. But I think that you steer the ship on, if I can offer it and give it to you and you can go and empower yourself, I'm going to lay it here on the table and give it to you. So I just want to appreciate you for that, because that means the world to all of us that's doing this local grassroots organizing work that truly does not get funded well, but we continue to fight for the next day. We fight till we can't fight anymore. And that's why we hopped on, and we were so honored to partner with you all, with NAN, with USDOE, because we know this work has to get from your voices, from your desk down to the people who really are doing the hard work. We call them the boots on the ground. So thank you, sister. I just want to appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you as well, very much so. The grassroots doesn't get all the credit for the work oftentimes, but we're on the ground, and I'm talking about deep trenches, y'all. And nobody funds that. Our heart funds that. Right? Our passion for our people and our love for our people, and this intergenerational shift of knowledge and wisdom and power. So use it. Sheila, I see you have a question, and then we're going to end.
Just NAN. I mean, we don't have a NAN in Indiana. I think somebody did answer that question. How would we start a NAN in Indiana? Thank you. Or Fort Wayne. Thank you.
So I'm the education director, but I'll connect you with the right person. If you put your information in the chat, or either reach out to me by the email address that I put in the chat, we'll definitely connect you with the appropriate persons that help with that. Cheryl Huff, I see you. We're gonna say something.
So to the lady in Indianapolis, you can reach out to the Knoxville chapter, and once we finish, Christina have that information. That's the closest one to you. It's in Kentucky. I'm sorry, but we're in the South, and we have problems in the South, and we need all of this help that you're saying. This is really, really wonderful, and our Black children here are suffering. I am from Chicago, and I can't do it along here. And if it was not for Christina introducing what you all do, I would not have known any of this, period. So I really appreciate what you all have brought today. I've learned a lot. I've written down a lot, and I need to know more how we can get it started here in the South. Thank you so much.
All right, and with that being said, does anyone else have anything that they would like to close with? I want to honor everyone's having an opportunity to say something. All right, thank you so much for allowing us to, Alexis, were you gonna say something?
I just want to say, I hope everyone has a safe and wonderful evening. And more importantly, clearly, we need to figure out how to re-engage and when the next session of this will be. So I will speak that, and we will just get some scheduling and figure out, what some of our follow-up items will be.
Definitely. We're here to put the knowledge forward and the action. So I appreciate that. All right, with Tracy, did you have something? I saw you unmuted.
Yeah, I was just gonna say thank you to you and Alexis for all of this. Howard, Camilla, and I here in Las Vegas can help because what we got going on here. But I wanted to say just thank you, and thank you for the reminder on today. And thank all of the participants and for that information, because it's kind of interesting to hear what's going on nationally right now. So yeah, and our babies need us. So thank you guys so much for this.
Yes, and I hope you stay safe from crickets, because I saw that on the news so over there in Nevada. All right. Well, with that being said, all the information's in the chat. I will follow up and email all of this recording and other links to you. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you. Stay tuned for more. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.